So good afternoon, friends, from my home in Bath, and welcome to the fifth and final vlog concerning the story that led to the new recording of Alpha and Omega, the journey that began all those years ago in Bergen-Belsen and has culminated in the release of this brand new version 30 years on. In the last video, I ended, I think, by talking about the series of 3 albums, the trilogy, the trilogy that began with Alpha and Omega, led to Song of an Exile, and then City of Peace, which was released in 1996. In spite of a couple of albums in between then and the year 2000, albums like Intimate Strangers, Poems, Seven Hills, it was The Cry that was finally released in 2003 that kind of continued this journey, this path, Alpha and Omega, Song of an Exile, City of Peace. And The Cry, also entitled A Requiem for the Lost Child, actually drew lots of strands together from all of those years of thinking and the places I'd been, and the changes in perspective that had come about. And if you know The Cry, you'll know that a central part of that work is the naming of children from many, many places, from different conflicts, different wars, different periods of ethnic cleansing. It's the voice of the child speaking to the adult world, asking many questions. And of course, there are profound links in that work with all of those years ago, that visit to Yad Vashem, when I stepped into the Children's Memorial and walked through this extraordinarily powerful, beautiful cave with mirrors and candles that, by this clever use of mirrors and candles, gave you the feeling of 1.5 million burning flames to represent the 1.5 million children and young people who had died in the Holocaust. But it was the naming of those children in Yad Vashem, constantly, day after day, hour after hour, a man and a woman's voice. It was the naming of those children that had made such an impression on me. That simple act of giving dignity back to somebody by giving them a name rather than a number, a statistic. So, as you can imagine, that did sow the seeds for what was to come with The Cry, and this act of remembrance, remembering for the future. It was released in 2003, as I say, and it actually had its proper world premiere in St. Paul's Cathedral in, let me get this right, it was 2008, November 2008. It took a long time for us to get to a place where we were able to perform that. And I give you that little bit of background because it was over that period of time, just before the year 2000, the recording of The Cry was well underway. But I found myself in a very strange place towards the end of the writing and recording of The Cry, a place of much self-reflection, a sense of wondering where everything was going, a sense of tiredness with all the travel and all the concert work, being away from home so much. And also, a lot of musicians face this at a certain point in their lives. Is this it? Is this all I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Where's it all going? That was coupled with the fact that in spite of all the energy and time and investment that I put into The Cry alongside librettist, co-author Murray Watts, it was very unclear what was going to happen to that work, both in terms of an album release and also in terms of concerts. And that actually is very difficult to deal with as a composer-performer. It's quite depressing in a way when you put all of that into something and then the future for it is so uncertain. And I think this time my self-questioning went much deeper than ever before. And I came out of that time of questioning actually feeling it was time to stop and rethink where I wanted to go with my life as a musician, as well as a father and a husband. it was out of that time of rethinking that I decided to train as a music therapist. The story of how I got to that point is too long for now, but I discovered in music therapy an extraordinary way of bringing all these strands together. First of all the skills I'd learned as a communicator, as a performer, all that sense of maybe exploring the world of the lost child and lost childhood. And I came to a point of thinking, gosh, music therapy would bring you right back to the heart of what music really is about. That communication between people on such a deep level, a level that doesn't need words. But in a music therapy context, you are there to facilitate somebody else. You're helping them in their communication, their world of self-expression. It all made sense. And so I committed to a proper training to become a professional music therapist. I did that, and I started to practice in about 2003. And over the coming years, I built up my client base, if I can call it that, to the point where I was pretty much full-time music therapist, at least in school term time here in the UK. I had genuinely made the decision after The Cry that if that was it in terms of concerts, tours, album recording, so be it. I'd had an extraordinarily wonderful period of time up till there. I had nothing to complain about. I was so privileged to have an audience from all over the world really following my work over all those years. And I accepted that maybe it was time to say, okay, now a new chapter. Well, although it was indeed a new chapter, in the most wonderful way, the world of writing and recording did come back into the picture. And it came back initially with a challenge from close friends not to give up on the recording and to think about writing. And as it happened, I had already written quite a few songs, but this time they were very influenced by my work as a music therapist, not just the thinking and the subject material, but also the sounds, the instruments, the way I'd use instruments. And so it was that Every Place Is Under the Stars was released in 2006. My first sort of solo album in many, many years. I was thrilled with the response, and of course that led to a little bit of concert work again, this time with my wonderful daughter Carla. And it just felt like, wow, we're back on track. I mean, as in all the bits, all the strands coming together. There was nothing then until 2013 with the release of Fierce Love. And I would have to say that Fierce Love, significantly more even than Every Place Is Under the Stars, was sort of seeking to integrate Adrian, music therapist, Adrian, performer, composer, recording artist. I feel it did that. And I have to say that some of the songs on Fierce Love are, for me, amongst the strongest I've ever written in terms of standalone songs, lyrically as well as musically. And this is another point that I was by now really discovering my love of writing lyrics and poems, whereas for so many years in the past I've been dependent on someone else to either come up with the words or join with me in the writing. Now I felt a freedom to write totally my own material. And Fierce Love was a very important milestone in that respect. Started to tour and do a few concerts here and there, performing Fierce Love. And then came the big decision to start again with the bigger works. I was invited to perform The Passion, and many of you will probably know that has to be probably the sort of defining work of mine, in that it's the work that probably people know most of all, recorded way back in 1980. And I was invited to perform The Passion again with full band and choir in the Netherlands. And I accepted the invitation. And I'm hard to put into words really, to come back after all these years of not really touring, to commit to sort of 4 or 5 concerts in Holland, and then over a period of less than a week to have performed to, I don't know what it was, about 8,000 people. I might have got that wrong, but it was a lot, and we were playing to full houses, and it was just a wonderful, humbling experience of feeling that I hadn't been forgotten, that the work that I'd been making all those years ago still lived in people's hearts, and they wanted to see it again. So that, of course, started another chain of thinking, and the passion was repeated 2 times. And then came the request to bring Alpha and Omega back. And I had to think very hard about this, because there was a sense in which, for reasons you'll have understood if you've seen the other blocks, it kind of felt as if I'd moved on from that. And I wasn't sure that it was right to sort of step back into the world of Alpha and Omega nearly 30 years on. Importantly, I had not put 2 and 2 together, and it had not occurred to me that we were quite literally 30 years after the first performance in Jerusalem. Was persuaded joyfully to come back with Alpha and Omega. And as soon as that decision was made, I knew that there needed to be more, and the more was to be a new recording of that work. Some of the reasons for that I explained earlier, but just to recap: A, the feeling that the message of Alpha and Omega was absolutely as relevant in 2017, which is when we performed it and recorded it, as it was in 1986. But also because musically I felt that we could do better. We were working with technology that was very, very different back in 1986. And over the course of the many, many performances of Alpha and Omega, one of the areas that had grown so much was the choir. And the choir sound and the experience of working with choirs from all over the world was so dynamic. And it felt clear to me that by re-recording that work, we could go a lot further with the choral parts, and then of course also with the recording. And so the commitment was made, and it was after the commitment was made to do this that we realised this would become a 30-year anniversary recording. And that just sort of, I don't know, it confirmed everything for me. The rest, many of you know, that we committed to that, and in 2017 we did several concerts in Holland that were recorded. They formed the basis of the live recording under the wonderful production hands of Dave Bainbridge, who took it back to the studio and completed that work for its release at the end of last year, 2017. Of course, the journey is not over. I don't mind telling you that I'm actively writing new material at the moment, not particularly around that theme, but it's as if, I'm going to put it this way, it's as if having given or been prepared to give up a lot of where my life had been as a composer and recording artist, it feels as if God, the Creator, has sort of given it back. And it's come back with more maturity, I hope more musical breadth and depth too. So, I'm as excited as I ever was about writing, recording, performing, but all based on the Adrian Snell of 2018, who is now a music therapist. That's it. I really hope it's been useful to you to listen to all of these and watch all of these blogs. Let me know what you think. If you've got questions, put them out there. And watch this space, because it's not finished. But from the heart, thank you for giving me your attention during these last weeks as I've been telling this story. God bless you. Until the next time. Bye-bye.